Ladies and gentlemen, the question before us today is a dark and subtle one. How does a super empath, that rare soul armed with both sensitivity and strength, torment the narcissist? You must first understand, the narcissist is not merely a person of vanity. No, they are a fragmented entity desperate to prop a false self that cannot bear the weight of its own emptiness. They must be admired because admiration is the only thing standing between them and oblivion. Now, here enters the super empath, an individual whose depth of feeling is matched only by their commitment to the truth. And precisely this is the instrument of torture. Because when the super empath refuses to enter the narcissist's theater of masks, when they simply reflect the truth clean, harsh, and undeniable, they strip away the narcissist's illusions. They hold up a mirror and the narcissist sees, for perhaps the first time, the rot beneath the surface. But it doesn't stop there. The super empath denies them supply the oxygen of attention, not through cruelty, through indifference. And in the world of the narcissist, there is no greater cruelty than indifference. It is like standing before a god and being utterly ignored, invisible, irrelevant, forgotten. Moreover, the super empath weaponizes authenticity. They dare to be vulnerable. They dare to feel. And they dare to speak without fear. This raw, unfiltered humanity is incomprehensible to the narcissist, whose entire existence is a fortress built to hide the self. It is as if a pure flame were introduced into a house of dry straw. Then comes the fortress of integrity after boundary, erected not out of hatred, but out of self-respect. And each boundary is a pronouncement: you will not own me. You will not define me. You do not matter here. Imagine, if you will, a parasite discovering that the host has become immune. Finally, the greatest wound of all, the moral condemnation that comes not from words, but from the sheer existence of the empath's virtue. In their presence, the narcissist is judged without trial, found wanting without accusation, and condemned without a sentence ever being spoken. This is how a super empath tortures a narcissist. Not through malice, not through violence, but through a relentless, almost divine commitment to truth, to boundaries, and to being fully, terrifyingly alive. And it is a lesson for all of us, because the most powerful thing you can ever do to evil is simply to refuse to become it. Thank you. The relationship between a super empath and a narcissist is a brutal and revealing dance. And the most powerful move in that dance is when the empath simply becomes a mirror, an unflinching, merciless mirror of truth. Now, you must understand something fundamental about the narcissist. Their very survival depends upon illusion. Their entire identity is stitched together from fragments of lies, delusions of superiority, fantasies of control, desperate fabrications designed to shield them from a terrible inner reality that they are profoundly broken, hollow, and ashamed. They build this false self over years, sometimes decades, like a crumbling tower desperately reinforced with scaffolding made of deceit. They depend entirely on the reactions of others to maintain this fragile construction. They crave admiration, validation, envy, and sometimes even fear anything that tells them you are real, you are powerful, you matter. But here's where the super empath becomes dangerous. The super empath, unlike the average person, does not fall for the performance. They do not see the narcissist's polished exterior, the charm, the boasts, the manipulations, and respond with admiration or fear. Instead, they look directly through it. They look into it, and they do not look away. They see the emptiness. They see the frantic scrambling behind the mask. They see the deep, yawning insecurity at the center of the narcissist's being. And most devastatingly, they reflect it back, not with cruelty, not even necessarily with words, but with presence, with a gaze that does not flinch, with responses that do not validate the script the narcissist is trying to run. They offer a calm, steady reflection of what is real, and what is real is terrifying. Imagine standing before a mirror that strips away every layer of falsehood you have ever constructed, that shows you not what you pretend to be, but what you are, weak, deceitful, broken. That is what the super empath offers to the narcissist. This reflection is unbearable, because the narcissist has spent a lifetime refusing to confront the truth of who they are. They have hidden it even from themselves. To see it even for a moment is to experience a psychic death. It is to feel the collapse of the very self they have worshipped. It is, in a word, torture. Most people, when confronted by the narcissist's rage, charm, or manipulation, will instinctively fall into line. They will play along with the illusion because it is easier. It is safer. They will pretend the narcissist is as grand, as brilliant, as special as they claim to be. The super empath refuses, not because they are cruel, but because they are devoted to reality. They are constitutionally incapable of lying to themselves or others about what they see. And this commitment to truth makes them extraordinarily dangerous to the narcissist's false self. What follows, predictably, is a series of desperate reactions. The narcissist may attempt to seduce the empath, flatter them, overwhelm them with attention, promises, love-bombing tactics. When that fails, they may attack, belittle, insult, rage, gaslight. They will do anything to make the mirror crack, to make the empath doubt their own perception. But the super empath does not break. They simply stand firm, holding that reflection steady. And every moment they do, the narcissist is forced to confront the unbearable weight of their own falseness. It is important to understand the empath is not doing anything to the narcissist in a conventional sense. They are not punishing them, retaliating, or seeking revenge. They are simply refusing to participate in the lie. And that refusal is experienced by the narcissist as profound agony. In mythology, the mirror often symbolizes self-knowledge, but also destruction. The hero who looks too long into the mirror without preparation is often destroyed by what they see. And so it is here, the super empath, by simply existing authentically in the narcissist's presence, invites them to see themselves. And it is that vision, that unbearable, searing vision, that tortures them. There is a moral lesson embedded here, and it is not a comfortable one. Evil, deception, narcissism, these forces do not thrive in the presence of violence or confrontation. They thrive in darkness, in avoidance, and the polite pretense that everything is fine. What destroys them is the light. What destroys them is truth. And the super empath, by being an uncompromising mirror of reality, becomes the light the narcissist cannot bear. If you want to understand how a super empath tortures a narcissist, you must grasp one brutal fact: the narcissist survives on supply. They are like a starving man in a desert, and attention, any attention, is the only water they know. Praise, admiration, fear, anger, devotion, even hatred does not matter what form it takes. It is all supply. It is all food. The super empath, once awakened to the reality of what they are dealing with, does the unthinkable. They cut the narcissist off. They deny them the very thing they need to live. And there is no greater form of psychological torture. You see, a narcissist is not built to exist independently. Their sense of self is not solid, not whole. It is a floating, desperate construct that needs constant reinforcement from the outside world. Without supply, they begin to collapse inward. Without supply, they begin to starve. Now, the average person does not recognize this dynamic. They are easily manipulated into offering supply. They get drawn into the narcissist drama, their games, their endless need for validation. They argue. They plead. They chase. They try to prove themselves. All of this feeds the narcissist. All of this tells them you matter. You are powerful. You have control. The super empath chooses another path entirely. Instead of reacting, they withdraw. Not emotionally, no, that would still feed the narcissist, because coldness can be as nourishing as affection if it's charged with emotion. They withdraw their emotional energy completely. They become silent, neutral, detached. They see the narcissist's provocations for what they are: desperate bids for attention, and they refuse to engage. They refuse to play. And to the narcissist, this is annihilation. Imagine a performer standing on a grand stage, lights blazing, arms outstretched, waiting for applause that never comes. Imagine the unbearable silence, the crushing invisibility. That is what the narcissist feels when a super empath denies them supply. At first, the narcissist will react with confusion. They will escalate their tactics. They will provoke harder, flatter more intensely, rage more violently. They will try to create chaos, because even negative attention is attention. But the super empath sees through the smoke. They understand that every emotional reaction they give, even anger, even contempt, is a gift the narcissist desperately wants. So they give nothing. And the narcissist begins to unravel. There is an important psychological principle at work here. What you reward, you reinforce. When you reward a narcissist's behavior with attention, you make it stronger. When you withdraw that reward completely, consistently, mercilessly, the behavior weakens. The narcissist cannot sustain themselves on silence. They cannot inflate their false self without mirrors to reflect their image back to them. The super empath's refusal to offer supply is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of supreme self-respect. It is the recognition that the narcissist's entire reality is a prison, and that to feed it is to become complicit in one's own degradation. It is a declaration, I will not be your fuel. I will not be your mirror. I will not be your puppet. And this declaration is death to the narcissist's ego. In mythology, vampires are beings who must feed off the living to survive. Without blood, they wither and die. The narcissist is a psychic vampire, and the super empath, by denying them emotional blood, becomes their silent executioner. This starvation is not quick, it is not clean, it is slow, agonizing, relentless. The narcissist may lash out, they may beg, they may try to guilt trip, manipulate, seduce, but the super empath stands firm. They understand that any crack in their armor, any flicker of emotion will be exploited. So they stay rooted in stillness and detachment and quiet knowing. And in that stillness, the narcissist faces the one thing they have spent their entire life running from, their own emptiness. It is a terrible thing to behold a human being confronted with the void inside themselves without distraction, without applause, without fuel. It is a slow death of the false self, a painful dismantling of the grandiose illusions they have clung to for survival. And it all happens because the super empath, fully aware of the stakes, simply refuses to give them what they need. The world teaches us to believe that love can save anyone, that if we just love harder, try harder, feel more deeply, we can heal even the most broken souls. But this is not always true. Sometimes the most profound act of love for oneself and for the world is to refuse to participate in evil. Sometimes the most powerful act of healing is to let destruction consume itself. And sometimes the greatest mercy is no mercy at all. One of the most devastating ways a super empath tortures a narcissist is by refusing to be moved, by standing in perfect, unshakable calm while the narcissist storms around them like a wounded animal. You have to understand the narcissist feeds on emotional chaos. They thrive in environments of confusion, anger, jealousy, and fear because it gives them the upper hand. They can manipulate, twist, provoke, and pull strings in the middle of disorder. It makes them feel alive. It makes them feel powerful. And so when faced with resistance, the narcissist outlets. They scream, they insult, they make wild accusations. They rewrite history, they play the victim, they threaten, they plead. They create a hurricane of emotion, all designed to pull the other person into the vortex to make them react, lose control, get sucked back into the old patterns. Most people cannot resist this. Most people, when provoked, lash out. They try to defend themselves. They try to prove their point. They become entangled, emotionally overwhelmed, destabilized. And once destabilized, they become manageable, predictable, feedable. But the super empath is different. The super empath recognizes the storm for what it is, a show, a desperate performance, a last-ditch attempt to regain control. And so instead of fighting the storm, they do the one thing the narcissist cannot comprehend. They remain calm. They do not raise their voice. They do not plead or explain or justify. They do not match chaos with chaos. They breathe, they listen without absorbing. They watch without reacting. They become a still point in the center of the hurricane. And in that stillness, the narcissist is confronted with their own impotence. You must grasp the magnitude of what this means. The narcissist's entire strategy, their entire way of being, is built around the manipulation of emotional energy. They push buttons, they provoke reactions, they expect others to dance to their tune, to lose control, to feed the narrative. When the super empath refuses, when they respond with silence, neutrality, unshakable composure, it sends a message so devastating it cannot be spoken aloud. You have no power here. This is not indifference. It is not coldness. It is conscious, disciplined stillness. It is the kind of self-mastery that requires tremendous strength because the empath feels everything. They are not numb. They are not detached by nature. On the contrary, they feel the chaos vibrating around them. They feel the narcissist's rage, the fear, the desperation, but they refuse to be moved by it. They allow the storm to rage and they remain rooted. There is an ancient wisdom here, one that our modern world has forgotten. Strength is not about shouting louder or striking harder or overwhelming your opponent with force. True strength is the ability to endure the storm without letting it touch your soul. True strength is being able to look madness in the eye and not blink. The narcissist is maddened by this. They cannot understand it. They cannot believe it. They escalate further, trying every tactic they know, but it doesn't work. The super empath's calmness acts like a wall against which every blow is absorbed and rendered meaningless. And as the narcissist's tactics fail, they are forced slowly and painfully to see the truth, they are powerless. Their manipulations are obvious. Their games are tired. Their rage is impotent. They are exposed. Nothing terrifies a narcissist more than being seen as ordinary, small, predictable. They have built their entire existence on the fantasy that they are superior, exceptional, untouchable. The super empath's calm refusal to engage strips them of their grandiosity and forces them to confront the one thing they cannot bear, their own irrelevance. It is a brutal awakening, and it is not the empath's anger or hatred that causes it. It is their peace. Understand this: to the narcissist, peace is the ultimate violence, because it is peace that leaves them alone with themselves. It is peace that deprives them of drama, chaos, distraction. It is peace that shows them, finally, the monster in the mirror. The super empath's calmness is not passive. It is a conscious, active defiance. It is the refusal to be drawn into a lower frequency. It is the choice to remain sovereign, unbroken, untouchable. And in the end, it is this choice that tortures the narcissist most of all. There is a peculiar, almost poetic cruelty in the way a super empath tortures a narcissist. It's not through attack, nor retaliation, nor vengeance. It is simply by becoming a mirror. A perfect, polished mirror that reflects the narcissist's true self back at them with merciless clarity. You have to understand that the narcissist's entire existence is a lie. They spend their lives crafting illusions of superiority, of desirability, of brilliance. They build elaborate false selves stitched together from admiration, stolen identities, fleeting triumphs. And they surround themselves with people willing to believe the story. But the super empath does not buy the story. They see too deeply. They feel too clearly. They notice the cracks, the inconsistencies, the projections, the wild swings between grandiosity and self-pity. They recognize the patterns of manipulation, the desperate hunger for control, the bottomless need for validation. And once they see, they cannot unsee. This is where the mirror effect begins. The super empath does not need to accuse the narcissist. They do not need to argue or explain or confront. Their very presence, honest, clear, grounded, becomes unbearable to the narcissist, because in that presence, the narcissist senses, perhaps for the first time, that they are being truly seen, and not the polished mask they show the world know, the desperate, hollow creature behind the mask. This is what real seeing feels like: exposure, vulnerability, nakedness, and the narcissist cannot stand it. You must grasp that the narcissist's greatest fear is not being hated. It is being seen as they are, without glamour, without spin, without defenses. It is being reduced in someone else's eyes to the fragile, frightened being they work so hard to hide. The super empath, by embodying truth, compassion, and integrity, shines a light so bright that the narcissist's shadows cannot hide. And it is not a light that seeks to destroy. It is simply the light of reality. But to the narcissist, reality feels like an assault. They begin to crumble. First, they will resist. They will project harder, accuse louder. They will try to distort the mirror to make the empath question their perception. They will say, "You're crazy. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. You're the narcissist." They will use every trick to shatter the mirror, because to look into it is to feel the unbearable weight of their own fraudulence. But the super empath, grounded in inner truth, does not waver. They know what they see. They trust what they feel. And so they keep holding up the mirror wordlessly, relentlessly, just by existing in authenticity. And the narcissist begins to crack under the pressure. You see, the narcissist depends on the people around them to reflect back the version of themselves they want to believe in. They need admiration, submission, compliance. When the empath withholds these, when they reflect back only reality, the narcissist's false self starts to fracture. This process is not loud, it is quiet. It is a slow erosion, like water wearing away at stone. Every glance that does not offer admiration, every silence that does not offer validation, every calm refusal to play the game, it chips away at the narcissist's mask. And behind the mask, there is nothing prepared to face the world. In mythological terms, this is a form of soul death, because the narcissist has never developed a true self. They have only ever lived through reflections, performances, manipulations. And when the super empath refuses to reflect the lie, the narcissist is forced to confront the void they have spent their lives dying. It is a devastating experience. Most people think that to destroy a narcissist, you have to outfight them, outsmart them, humiliate them. That is not true. The real destruction happens when they are forced to face themselves, because they have no tools to survive that encounter. They have built no foundation. They have planted no roots. The super empath does not destroy the narcissist by violence. They destroy by clarity, by presence, by being a living example of what the narcissist has always feared, someone who sees through them and loves themselves enough not to play along. There is a terrible beauty in this because the super empath does not seek revenge. They do not wish harm. They simply insist on reality. And reality for the narcissist is the most unbearable torture of all, because in reality, they are not gods. They are not victims. They are not special. They are simply broken. And they have no one left to convince otherwise. There is no weapon more devastating to a narcissist than detachment. No confrontation, no lecture, no revenge can compare to the slow, crushing weight of being rendered irrelevant. And this is exactly what the super empath does. After all the storms, after all the manipulations, after all the battles for control and dominance, the super empath does something the narcissist never anticipates. They walk away, not in anger, not in bitterness, not in some dramatic flurry of accusations. No, they simply detach. They no longer care. And to the narcissist, this is the ultimate betrayal. You must understand the narcissist's very existence depends on their ability to occupy space in your mind. Whether you love them, hate them, fear them, or obsess over them, it does not matter. Attention is attention. Energy is energy. And the narcissist needs it to survive like a leech needs blood. When the super empath detaches, they cut off the supply completely. It is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of survival. The empath recognizes, perhaps after years of torment, that they cannot heal the narcissist, cannot change them, cannot save them. They see with brutal clarity that staying entangled is a slow death, a death of the self, a death of Jeff the Joy. And so they choose life. They choose themselves, and in doing so, they become free. This freedom, this detachment, is what tortures the narcissist most profoundly, because suddenly the game is over, the drama is over. The narcissist throws bait insults, accusations, guilt trips, fake apologies, and the empath does not bite. The narcissist stages performances, sudden declarations of change, promises of a new beginning, and the empath remains unmoved. The empath is no longer trapped inside the narcissist's emotional theater. They are sitting in the audience, watching with detached compassion, shaking their head at the spectacle. Nothing enrages a narcissist more than being ignored. Nothing terrifies a narcissist more than realizing they have no power over you. And this is what true detachment looks like, not hatred, not bitterness, not revenge, but indifference. The empath is no longer carrying the narcissist inside their mind, replaying conversations, analyzing betrayals, searching for meaning in madness. They have dropped the weight. They have closed the chapter. They have left the burning building without a second glance. The narcissist, abandoned in the ruins of their own making, is left to confront the thing they fear most, themselves alone. It is important to realize how rare and sacred this detachment is. It does not come easily. It is not born of sudden rage or impulsive rejection. It is the product of deep inner work, grieving the fantasy, mourning the lost time, reclaiming the self. The super empath walks through fire to reach this freedom. They sit with their wounds. They heal the parts of themselves that were vulnerable to the narcissist's manipulation. They learn to trust their perception again. They learn to forgive themselves, not the narcissist, but themselves for all the times they doubted their own soul in order to keep the peace. And with every step of healing, the chain weakens. The hook dislodges. The spell breaks. Until finally, one day, the super empath wakes up and feels nothing at all. No longing, no rage, no guilt, no need. The narcissist is simply irrelevant. This is liberation. And it is the deepest form of torture to the narcissist because they cannot replicate it. They cannot detach. Their identity is dependent on external validation. They need attention to exist. And when the empath severs the bond, the narcissist is left flailing, desperate, hollow. The super empath, meanwhile, rises. They reclaim their voice. They rediscover their joy. They create, they love, they laugh, and none of it has anything to do with the narcissist. They are living proof that survival is possible, that healing is possible, that peace is possible. And in that peace, they achieve the final, brutal justice. They thrive. The narcissist, trapped in their endless hunger, watches from a distance, powerless to do anything but rage and wither, because the empath has done the one thing the narcissist cannot understand. They have chosen themselves. They have walked away, and they have never looked back.